Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So the Master's birthday celebration at Dakshineshwar. So Master's conversation with the Goswami who visited Sri Ramakrishna is continuing. So Sri Ramakrishna, we found that he indicated that when the Goswami mentioned, "Sir, the chanting of God's name is enough," the scriptures emphasize the sanctity of God's name for the Kali Yuga. And to that the Master replied, "Yes, there is no doubt about the sanctity of God's name, but can a mere name achieve anything without the yearning love of the devotee behind it? One should feel great restlessness of soul for the vision of God. Suppose a man repeats the name of God mechanically, while his mind is absorbed in woman and gold. Can he achieve anything? Mere muttering of magic words doesn't cure one of the pain of a spider or scorpion sting. One must also apply the smoke of burning cow dung." So what's Sri Ramakrishna, as in the last class we were indicating, that yearning is the key. So that our spiritual journey do start with the repetition of the name of God. So when it's told that the repetition of the name of God is enough, it's not wrong. In a sense that yes, in the beginning, that though I may not have devotion, though I may not have yearning, but by repetition of the name of God, gradually I will find that the love is developing. If that doesn't develop, only then repetition of the name of God is of no use. It has to result in that devotion. As in Chaitanya Charitamrita, very nicely it has been mentioned, "Ei Harinam Nite Nite Bhakti Mukul Fudbechite." That go on taking the Lord's name, and then the yearning will develop, and that's the yearning which is the thing which is going to take you to that higher spiritual evolution. So without yearning, there cannot be the spiritual unfoldment. Just the mechanical repetition of the name is of no use unless it ripens into yearning. So that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna indicated. And now we will find the Goswami. He is contradicting Sri Ramakrishna's view. He is just trying a further explanation by quoting an instance from the scripture. What's that? Goswami. But what about Ajamila then? He was a great sinner. There was no sin he had not indulged in. But he uttered the name of Narayana on his deathbed, calling his son, who also had that same name, and thus he was liberated. So the Goswami is giving an example from the scripture of the character called Ajamila. Very interesting. He was a Brahmin boy. And he had good sanskaras. But somehow he fell in love with a servant lady. And he was so infatuated that they started staying together, and they had children. It's mentioned, it's in the Bhagavatam, the story is there. They had about 10 children. Then the youngest ones, they kept the name Narayana. And in the deathbed, he was actually thinking of his youngest son, whom he loved most. And he was calling him. But we find that after the death, it is the the emissaries of the Vishnu, who comes to take his soul. So, as if he has done something pious act by just calling on the name of God, even though it was done unintentionally. So that's the instance which Goswami is citing from the scripture. It's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now the master's reply, what he's saying? Master, perhaps Ajamila had done many spiritual things in his past births. It is also said that he once practiced austerity. Besides, those were the last moments of his life. What is the use of giving an elephant a bath? It will cover itself with dirt and dust again and become its former self. But if someone removes the dust from its body and gives it a bath just before it enters the stable, then the elephant remains clean. Suppose a man becomes pure by chanting the holy name of God, but immediately afterwards commits many sins. He has no strength of mind. He doesn't take a vow not to repeat his sins. A bath in the Ganges undoubtedly absolves one of all sins. But what does that avail? They say that the sins perch on the trees along the bank of the Ganges. No sooner does the man come back from the holy waters than the old sins jump on his shoulders from the trees or laugh. The same old sins take possession of him again. He is hardly out of the water before they fall upon him. So, that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that what's the condition, the mental state of an aspirant who doesn't have a strong resolution. So it's just like that example which we give in various contexts, that suppose a man was feeding many birds every day, and one day he takes the resolution that he won't feed them anymore. But the birds won't stop coming. They were fed for such a long time. So they, with an expectation that they will be fed, do come. Even after the grains were not given to them, it was stopped, they still continued to come to that person. Now after 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, the person somehow felt, oh, they are coming again and again. And though he took the resolution that he won't feed them, just he yields to the birds, there's the constant expectation, he yields to that, and he goes and feeds the birds with the grains on the 3rd day. So what will happen? The 4th day they will again come. So that's what happens in our spiritual journey. That we take the resolution that we are not going to feed the birds, means all our desires. We will resort to the spiritual path. No more we are going to give importance. We are not going to pamper all our old tendencies. And then after a few days, as constantly they go on urging to be satisfied those desires, I yield to them. And then again I am in the same condition as before. Again that expectation develops, that they get their strength. And this goes on repeatedly. And that's how we get anchored to the worldly pleasures of life. Though we are rowing our boat, but of no avail, because we haven't removed the anchor. And that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that if a man is repeating the name of God, but immediately afterwards he commits many sins, he has no strength of mind, he doesn't take the vow not to repeat his sins. A bath in the Ganges undoubtedly absolves one of all sins. But what does that avail? They say that the sin perch on the trees along the bank of the Ganges. No sooner does the man come back from the holy waters than the old sins jump on his shoulders from the trees. The same old sins take possession of him again. He is hardly out of water before they fall upon him. So that's one part. But initially what Sri Ramakrishna is saying is interesting, that when he told that Ajamila was liberated, though he took the name of Lord unintentionally. It was actually he was calling on his youngest son. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying that he had developed some spiritual tendencies in the past births. Not only that, in this birth also he was practicing many austerities. And then suddenly there was a fall. He got infatuated by the servant lady. He got infatuated. But as we find in the Bhagavad Gita also it is mentioned that whatever practice, the little practice you have done, it is not lost. Neha bhikramana shosti pratyavayana vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That whatever little practice you have done, it remains as samskara, as a latent impression. The tendency has developed. And it's very interesting that even such a person who he had fallen from his path, that when he's keeping the name of his son, he's keeping the name of God. Why? There is the same reason. Even now we will find that we keep the name of the children in the name of God, so that by calling my children, I will remember God. So though he has fallen, his spiritual tendency speaks of this, all the actions which he are doing, it is still there. So though he has been covered by dirt, but the inner core is something which is like jewel, it is treasure. It just a little suggestion is required, where all this so-called mud which has covered as a covering over him, that washes away, and immediately that spiritual fervor comes as an upsurge. As Sri Ramakrishna in some other context says a very nice thing, that a gardener was ploughing the garden, he was ploughing the land, and accidentally his axe fell upon a hidden pipe of water, and the water started coming out as fountain. It just was coming out as a fountain. Everyone was amazed to see that so much water. But no one was aware of the fact that the pipe was already there underground. It was flowing, the water was flowing there. Similarly, in our subconscious mind, the way there are so many evil tendencies are hiding, the same way there are so many good tendencies they are hiding. And it needs just an occasion for them to come and sprout. And that's what most probably has happened with Ajamila. Though he was calling the name of his son, but his old samskaras, his association, enabled him to think of the Lord, though he was calling on his son. This is called Atmavat Deva Sevanam in our scripture. That you need not have to forcefully renounce the things of the world. If you have some tremendous attachment for the worldly desires, you sublimate them instead of subjugating them. How? Atmavat Deva Sevanam. That the first fruit of the season, so the mango, which comes in the market, I am most probably fond of it. If I buy and immediately I just take it, if I eat it, that speaks of my greed. But though I am fond of mango, I buy it, I bring and I offer it to the divine, and then I have it. Now the greed is sublimated to devotion. That is Atmavat Devas, that whatever you like, don't try to subjugate it. Offer it to the divine and then have it. Then what happens? All the so-called worldly inclinations get sublimated into spiritual fervor. So that's the sublimation. So here also we find the sublimation, that Ajamila had that spiritual fervor he previously practiced. And when he was keeping the name of his son, he kept the name as Narayana. So that the association, just the way that story we say that a young brahmachari, when he came to join the order, he was asked to do the everyday puja, everyday worship. And he found that among many things, some perfume is used as gandha, as an upachara. So perfume is used. And he objected to that. He told that in this puja, we are doing the worship to renounce the world. Why use all this paraphernalia? This paraphernalia distracts our mind. And then he was mentioned that these are the instructions, vidhis of puja. You do it. Most probably the Swami to whom he asked, he never had any explanation, so he told that I cannot explain you, but this is the tradition, follow it. And he never got the proper explanation, but as he was asked to do it, so he was continuing. Though at the beginning he was just resenting to it. But he continued. And after a few months, he himself found that drastic transformation within him. What's that? That as he was every day using the perfume for the worship, this perfume now got associated with the divine. Previously it was distraction. The scent of the perfume, the smell of the perfume is to make him think of some social event where all have used that perfume. It is to distract the mind. Now by continuous worship for days together, for months together, now the perfume has got associated with the divine. It is something which is offered to the divine. And now this brahmachari, suddenly one day he went for shopping. And in the marketplace, in that noisy marketplace, he was passing by a perfume shop. And the smell of the perfume, that which came from the shop, immediately made him calm and tranquil. He felt that within the devotion, he is feeling the presence of the devotion in that noisy marketplace. What has happened? The same perfume which used to distract him now has become associated with, it has got associated with the divine. And that's how it has been sublimated. So in that noisy marketplace, in the depth of his heart, he is finding devotion welling up. And who knows, for Ajamil also the same thing. So now you will find the Sri Ramakrishna's words do have very great significance. That it is not the mere repetition of the name. The yearning. That yearning is important. We do not know the subjective feeling of Ajamila. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Who knows? That by repeating the name of Narayana, though everyone felt he's calling his son, even he himself really was calling his son. But the moment, in the last moment, by repeating Narayana, his past association with his all spiritual practices, that in the last moment, they came up on his mind. And that suddenly he found the divine fervor growing in him. And it is that yearning which actually cleansed his mind and took him to that ultimate liberation. And not only that, that another important thing he's saying, Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that what's the use of giving an elephant a bath? It will cover itself with dirt and dust again and become its former self. So what you think in the last moment is important. That we cleanse our mind, but again, because of our past associations, again the old thought may come. But they say that at the moment of your death, the thought which is predominant on your mind, what you're thinking, that decides your destiny. That decides your next birth. That decides your further progress in your spiritual journey. It's just like sometimes that funny example which we give, that when you are watching the TV and you're watching a particular channel and you off the TV in that channel, the next time when you open the TV, it will open in that channel, isn't it? We have experienced that. So you are going to take birth in a body which speaks of the last thought which you had in your mind. So that may make us think, then why to practice spirituality? Just let us live an easy life. At the time of death, I will take the name of Lord. As in Bengali they say, Moron Kale Harinam. But is it that easy? In the last moment of our life, unless we have the sanskara, that throughout our life we have practiced spirituality and that has developed into some this impression in our mind, subconscious impression in our mind. How can the thought of God come in the last moment? It will never come. It will never the thought of God will never come. As Sri Ramakrishna says, that for a worldly person, you know what happens? That in the deathbed, when he's about to die, he's so much miserly, he's always thinking of wealth. He calls his son and asks that the only lamp, the oil lamp which is burning, the wick is protruded too much, and that's why the flame is burning at a very fast rate. It is giving out quite a huge flame. It is a huge flame has been enkindled, and that actually speaks of lot of oil consumption. So he calls his son and says, please reduce the wick. So that's the thing he's thinking, that because throughout the life he was thinking of worldly thing only. He's going to just die, but at that time, that's the thought which comes in his mind, that the wick, the oil is being wasted. Please reduce the wick. So that's the thing, that what you think, yes, what you think throughout your life, that becomes your natural tendency. So that's why we find that yearning is so important, that just mechanical repetition of the name is of no avail unless it gets ripened into devotion. So very nice, interesting that there's one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. She was a lady devotee. Her name was Nistarini Devi, very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. When she was elderly, she was old, long after Ramakrishna passed away, the Belur Math has already been formed. And she visited Belur Math and found the young brahmacharis are all sitting and doing japa. It was a nice sight to see that so many young boys, they are sitting and repeating the name of Lord. Now this Nistarani Devi is saying that immediately what she remarked was something interesting. In that, first I will say in Bengali and then I will translate it. Jotoi jop karo or dhyan karo, murte janle hoy. That you may go on doing this, your meditation and japa throughout your life, but know it for certain, the key is, what is the key for liberation? That you should know how to die. Murte janle hoy. What's the idea? That yes, all this yearning, all this practice, if it has not got converted into yearning, this will never become the predominant thought of your mind. If you have developed yearning, then it becomes the predominant thought, and at the time of death, this is the thought which is going to be predominant on your mind, and that will that will speak of your destiny, the course, the journey which you are going to take after death, that will decide. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is indicating again and again that yearning is important, not mechanical repetition of the name. Unless you have yearning, that name cannot help you. Though we find that, yes, in the Orthodox Vaishnavism, they say that Nam Mahatma, that name alone can take us across this world of phenomenal existence. We never deny that. Again and again we are saying that yes, name alone can take us. But what Sri Ramakrishna is saying is very important, that if you just think that name alone can take us, we'll find many people are there doing all worldly duty and mechanically taking the name of Lord, just going on counting the beads, never having the idea that he has to develop yearning for the Lord. So this practice remains just a mechanical practice. If he had the idea that it has to be developed into yearning, and that way really focused on that practice, gave importance to that practice, then for most of us, if you go to a doctor and if you have some repetitive behavioral pattern, someone you will find that constantly washing their hand or doing certain things which speaks of repetitive behavioral pattern, they say it to be a disorder. What is the OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder? If you go on taking the name of Lord without developing that yearning, it can also be an OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, nothing else. Unless the yearning develops. Why the OCD happens? when I cannot keep my mind engaged in some constructive thing, it has to remain engaged in something, then in our life, some mechanical repetitions become our habit, because with that we somehow keep the mind engaged in something, though it has no purpose. But as the mind cannot remain free, it has to be engaged, it goes on repeating that way. So, this becomes a mechanical practice. I will give a very nice incident in this context. I was in a hospital center long back, and there some person was admitted to the hospital. He was sick, and then suddenly one day he went into coma. And the doctors told that he is not going to continue for long. He is going to die soon. That all the hope, there is no hope for him. But it was found that he was, for days together, he was there in the state of coma. And then one day, one of this patient's relative told that few months back, he fell down and he broke his hand. And when he was recovering, the doctor gave him some soft ball to just go on pressing on it so that he again regains his strength. The muscles grow and he regains his strength. And even after he was fully recovered, in the old age there was nothing to do, so that became his OCD. He always will be just keeping the ball in his hand and just go on pressing it without any purpose that he is to do. And the doctor suddenly told, okay, is it the fact that man was in coma? They called, okay, we bring that ball. They brought that soft ball, and it was given in the hand of that patient. And within few hours, he passed away. Within few hours, he passed away. And listening to that, I witnessed that, we were seeing that, then suddenly that thought came. That in our spiritual journey, that we also develop the habit of counting the beads or counting your fingers, counting the name of the Lord in the fingers or in the. If you don't develop yearning, that also can become a mechanical engagement, like an OCD. And at the time of death, most probably we may ask for the rosary. We may go on repeating. Others may think, taking the name of the Lord, we have left the body. It must be a very high, course of our destiny it will take. But who knows? That most probably it was just like that person who wanted that ball just to mechanically go on pressing on it. So unless yearning is there, all these practices can simply turn out to be OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is warning us. That yes, the name of the Lord is powerful, but it should lead to yearning. And that yearning, when that yearning comes, then what happens? Then again you're repeating the name of the Lord. But that repetition is out of love. That's very important. As we give the example, that unless our practice ends up in love, the practice can never entail in real meditation. Real meditation is a product of love, not of will. That we think meditation is something which we have to do out of our willpower. That my mind is getting distracted, I have to use my willpower to keep it focused. Yes, in the beginning, we do need our willpower. But by constant repetition, when gradually it gets converted into love, devotion, then the willpower is no more required. Your mind is automatically, spontaneously connected to your Ishta, to your deity, because you have developed love. Just the way the mother can never forget the child. The mother never sit down and meditate on child that she may forget her child. Have you ever heard that? It's a funny thing. Can ever such a thing happen? The mother's love for the child make her think of the child always, whatever she may be doing. So love speaks of real contemplation, real taking the name of the Lord. So yearning is the key point, not just mechanical repetition. That's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. He's saying from the experience of his life, of his own life, without any spiritual help, just by yearning, he just started capturing the citadels of all the spiritual culminations through various denominations, various paths. And that's why with conviction he's saying that the yearning is the thing which is important. So therefore I say, chant the name of God, and with it pray to him that you may have love for him. That's important. Pray to God that your attachment to such transitory things as wealth, name, and creature comforts may become less and less every day. So these two things, Ishware Anurag, Vishoye Virag. In Gospel he says again and again. Love for God and detachment for Vishaya, all the worldly entanglements. So these two things. And these two things, are they a separate practice? No. If the repetition of the name of the Lord gets ripened into devotion, then what happens? The love for God makes me forget other things naturally. The more I go towards the east, the west automatically falls behind. I cannot push west. So it falls off. So here also the same thing Sri Ramakrishna saying, take the name of Lord, develop love for him, and that will entail in the detachment from the transitory things, wealth, name, creature comforts. And that's how you evolve spiritually. So these are the clue he is giving. Very simple point. Why he is saying all those things? Because we do find that many of us have made the taking the name of the Lord like a ritual, like any other ritual. Just we do it without knowing the purpose of it and without trying to develop real yearning for God. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying this crucial point is to develop that love. Unless that's developed, know it for certain that the name is of no avail. It won't help you in your spiritual journey. So dogmatism is condemned. Now next, we find that Sri Ramakrishna is saying to Goswami what? With sincerity and earnestness, one can realize God through all religions. The Vaishnavas will realize God and so will the Shaktas, the Vedantists and the Brahmos. The Musalmans and Christians will realize him too. All will certainly realize God if they are earnest and sincere. Some people indulge in quarrels saying one cannot attain anything unless one worship our Krishna, or nothing can be gained without the worship of Kali, our Divine Mother, or one cannot be saved without accepting the Christian religion. This is pure dogmatism. The dogmatist says, my religion alone is true and the religions of others are false. This is a bad attitude. God can be reached by different paths. Further, some say that God has form and is not formless. Thus they start quarreling. A Vaishnava quarrels with a Vedantist. One can rightly speak of God only after one has seen him. He who has seen God knows really and truly that God has form and that he is formless as well. He has many other aspects that cannot be described. So as we have indicated that all these various concepts of divinities doesn't speak of the ultimate reality. They are the way, there's the path which we are following which takes us to that ultimate realization. So whatever form of divinity we may choose as our Ishta, as a chosen ideal, there is no harm in choosing any of those concepts of divinities as our Ishta. As per my temperament, as per my liking, I may choose any of them. And Sri Ramakrishna is saying that each of them have the efficacy to take us to that highest spiritual goal. Because it's a way. What's the way? That as we say, that Nama Rupa, those who believe in form, that form do help. How it helps? It do help in concentrating our mind, focusing our mind. Very simple thing, that how form, there is a very nice psychological principle behind it. That you will find all our thoughts, each and every thought has two components, Nama, Rupa. When I Just sitting here, I say, if red rose, it's not near me. Just by hearing that word red rose, immediately I visualize in my mind. A picture comes in my mind, what the red rose is. So just see what the thought has two components. The word nama, that word, the red rose, immediately enkindles in my, helps me to visualize the red rose, though I am not in the presence of the red rose. So each thought wave has these two components, nama, a name, and a rupa. Now when I meditate in a particular form, it helps me to focus very effectively. Why? Because I am taking care of both the components of my thought, the nama and the rupa. Otherwise, sometimes what happens, that on certain concept I am meditating, which has no as such tangible form, the mind easily gets distracted because the visualization component of your mind is left free. So you may be repeating some name, maybe repeating some prayers, but the mind may be visualizing all sorts of things. So this form do help us. So when you are meditating on the form as well as the name taking together, this helps to keep your mind fixed on that thought effectively. The visualization as well as the vocal representation, this audible representation, both are taken care of. So this type of meditation, what happens when you are doing effectively, as we told, that all meditation at the beginning starts with willpower, that we don't feel devotion for it. But when we go on doing it repeatedly, the mind's it is the faculty of the mind, the function of the mind, that whatever you do again and again, your mind gets wired. A path is created. And once the path is created, we develop liking for it. All our likings are for the things which has got wired up in the mind. So this repeated practice gradually you find helps in developing that devotion. Now your meditation becomes really effective, because love is something which is now guiding your meditation. It is out of love. So the meditation has become spontaneous. This spontaneous meditation, now what it does, it helps you to really focus on your object of meditation. And the more the focus develops, the more the other distractions falls off. Because the mind doesn't have the capacity to take care of all activities at a time. The more you focus on one thing, the other things are bound to fall off. You will find it happens in your daily life. The more your mind is focused, I'm watching something, I'm reading something intently, or I'm watching something, some tournament or some game in the TV, I find if someone calls, I don't hear. All the distractions, why? The mind cannot process that information, because it has been taken by the object of meditation. So the more my mind gets focused, what happens at last? The last thing to fall off is our ego. That I am meditating. I am the dhyata. This is the object of meditation. And the meditation is the process which is connecting this me and the object of meditation. So what it speaks of, that ego is still there. That's the last thing to fall off. But when the focus becomes really intense, this ego also falls off, making you one with the object of meditation. Falling off of the ego makes you one with the object of meditation. And now your object of meditation becomes the framework to relate to your real nature. Because ego is the thing which hides our real nature. It has fallen off for the time being. And immediately your mind gets, that goes beyond this phenomenal existence to get identified with the absolute reality. And it happens in all the religions. Very interesting, if you read the life of the mystics, they were called heretics. They were branded as heretics in their own time. Because when you say that I am one with Jesus, I am one with God, I am one with the absolute reality, And they find in the scriptures it is not mentioned. Even we find in the Bible the very first mystic is the Jesus in the New Testament. He says, I and my Father are one. So this unitary experience, when it comes, when the ego has fallen off, you are absorbed with that, your absolute. So that your object of meditation has become a framework through which you have reached there. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna says very nicely that all the concepts of divinity, whether with form or formless, is a framework through which we are peeping into the infinitude. He's giving a nice example. Suppose there is a wall, I don't know what is on the other side of the wall, I start digging a hole in that wall. And the hole may be of different shape. It may be circular, it may be rectangular. And when the hole is complete, my digging is complete, I peep through it. That circular or the rectangular hole becomes the framework to see the infinitude behind. That there is most rather a huge expanse of field with no this boundary visible. It appears to be infinite. I see through that hole. And what will be my realization? That this is the hole which enables me to peep into the infinite. So that's why Jesus becomes the Son of God. Because he has created the hole in his mind to become one with his Father, and now that becomes a framework for others to also peep into that infinite. So this is, and as we in our spiritual journey create a single hole, a single framework, that becomes our reality. Through that we are peeping into that infinitude. But in the life of Ramakrishna, as he was a very, a spiritual glutton, he was not satisfied with one practice. One after other, he started conquering the citadel of spiritual domain. One after other, he was conquering them and going to the same realization to come to this conclusion that all these concepts of divinities they are all what? They are all a framework through which I am as if making a hole in the wall of ego to peep into that infinity, to peep into the absolute reality. So that's the wonderful thing which Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So till I create the whole, it is all belief. All the quarrel in this life is what? Or in this world you find that your religion is false, mine is true. Why mine is true? Because my prophet has said that. And he says, no, my prophet has said that. We are fighting with this. No one has realized. It is all belief. That's why when Naren came to Sri Ramakrishna and told that such and such belief is blind faith, some certain belief he just indicated that it is just andha vishwas. It is a blind faith. And immediately Sri Ramakrishna started laughing. And Naren was a bit astonished that why? Doesn't Sri Ramakrishna think that considers that faith to be very, very debasing? It is blind. So he was questioning Ramakrishna again, that why? Isn't it that it is it's a blind faith? And then Sri Ramakrishna's reply was wonderful. He said, please tell me which faith has eyes. Which faith? All the faiths are blind. All faith. You may think my faith is something great. It's blind. Have you seen it? When you say God cannot take form, it is formless because my prophet has said so. Have you seen it? That God is formless and someone says, no, God can only be this form, nothing else. He can be Krishna, alone can be the God. Nothing can be God. It is again your faith. Has it take you to realization? It's just a faith. How can you just quarrel with something which speaks of your blindness? It doesn't speak of your eye. There is no eyes with which you have seen. All the faiths are blind. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that the purpose of religion is to go to the realization. And if you can go there, then what happens? Sri Ramakrishna very nice is Sekhane shop shealer akra. When one fox howls in the forest, you will find all the fox will be howling. So as if all are giving consent. Yeah, you are correct. That's the thing. So that's the idea Sri Ramakrishna is giving. Shekhane. When you go to that realization, all the fox howls in the same manner. So that's why we were saying, if you go to the life of the mystics, they're all speaking of that unitary experience. In Islam, the Sufis are considered to be the one who takes the spiritual practice for spiritual evolution. They are not satisfied only with some belief system. And their founders were persecuted. Why? Because they started saying Anal Haq. Al-Haq Al-Haq means the truth. That's okay. But when you add an, it becomes I am the truth. And that was considered as blasphemy. And they were persecuted, mercilessly persecuted. Why? That you can eat because you are speaking something which is a blasphemy. You are insulting God. How can you be God? You go to the Christian mystics, the same thing. All the mystics do have some unitary experience for which they were branded as heretics. Many were burnt alive to death. So this you will find in the entire, that many will be joking that in Hinduism, how come you have so many incarnations? And some Swami jokingly replied, because we don't burn our incarnations or crucify them. They are quite safe to take birth here. They're quite safe. We don't burn them or crucify them or... So that's the thing, that this idea that ekam sad vipra vahuda vadanti, that same truth which the various sages speaks in different way, the framework which we have chosen through which they have went to that unitary experience by dissolving their ego. That ego is the thing which binds us to this worldly plane. Beyond that he has gone. He has realized the truth. So all these dogmatism, which is the cause of turmoil even in this world, in the present world, you will find the same dogmatism with all our technology, with all our developments. At last we find that we are still in that tribal mode of existence with all the beliefs in the tribal gods, nothing else. Our gods are just tribal. Our identity becomes with the tribe, and that's my God, and that's why we are fighting, ruthlessly killing others. What type of God it is? That which cannot bring peace in earth for thousands of years. For thousands of years that we are saying that with my God I am going to bring peace in earth. Has peace came in this earth? No. Because it's just because of this dogmatism. Still now we find, now and then, suddenly people will be making caricature of this Ramakrishna's word. They're not even realizing that what a tremendous statement he has done, which is coming out from his own realization. It's not a mere intellectual accent. His life was an intense spiritual journey. And from that realization, he's speaking. He was an illiterate person. He had no recourse to this academic knowledge. Just by that simple faith that, oh God, if you are there, you have to be realized. If anything is existent, that existence is proved by my perception. If I cannot perceive, then how can it be an existent? It cannot be existent. So if I say God is and it cannot be perceived, it is not existent. So that's the simple thing Sri Ramakrishna, as a child, the simple thing, that if God is, it has to be perceived. And that's the belief that made him go through so many paths and go to that realization and to find that all the paths do lead to the same God. Joto mot, toto path. All are leading. Joto mot, toto path, many says all the paths lead to the same goal. That's not the exact correct translation. Joto mot, as many faiths, so many paths. That path did not be taking to that same goal. Yes, for you it may be that Krishna is taking you to the realization where you see Krishna everywhere. And you feel that yes, just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say after his realization, Jatro Jatro Netra Pore, Tratro Tatra Krishna Sphura. He meditated on Krishna. And with that he went to that realization. But the same realization, one who meditates on Rama, he will also go to that same realization. He will think that Rama, jis jo Ram Dasharat ka beta, wahi Ram ghat ghat mein leta. The same Rama. For him also the same realization. You may think Ram as Dashrath ka beta. That's a historical Rama. But the mystic through spiritual practice, he finds that same Rama, whom you say is Dashrath ka beta, he is Ghat Ghat Melta. In each and every being, he is there. Is it in any way different from the one who says, Jatro Jatro Netra Pore Tatra Tatra Krishna Spure? The same realization. It is taking you to that same realization. That's the unitary experience. From there you come down, you find that's the essence which has been projected as the universe. And that's how you get spiritually attuned through any of those paths. So this dogmatism, how it comes dogmatism? That example which we give again and again, that a person who tasted the mango, he has eaten the mango, and he comes to a village where none have tasted the mango. He says, mango is sweet and it has a nice flavor. And all the people think we have understood, because they have eaten something which is sweet. They have smelled something which has a nice fragrance. And they try to relate his words with their available fund of experience, and all the quarrel starts. Wow! Some will say, oh, mango is as sweet as molasses. It has a nice flavor of jasmine. And someone will say, no, it is as sweet as honey. It has the fragrance of tuberose. Some will say something. So like this you will find various opinions have grown, because they are trying to relate to his words from their available fund of experience. They were supposed to taste the mango. Unless you have the same experience, you can never relate to those words. And that's how the fight starts. All the dogmatism starts. I've heard a very nice story that a prophet, the God himself incarnated, he thought, let me speak out the truth. And there was a huge crowd. There was a huge crowd surrounding him. The space there, because he was revealing the truth. And now the emissaries of Satan, they were terrified. Oh, the truth will be revealed, and the Satan's kingdom will be gone. So they were terrified saying that, and they ran to Satan and give the information that the Lord has incarnated and is revealing the truth. Satan was not at all perturbed. He was sitting in his throne, totally unperturbed. And now the emissary started saying that, are you not disturbed? God has incarnated. He is revealing the truth. Well, you are all fools. Just go and see who are surrounding. They are all my emissaries. They will hear the truth of spoken, and they will start preaching, and my work will be done. So that's the thing which is happening in the world. In the name of religion, sometimes we find it is the so-called very nice sentences we find that what's the religion to do in the present world? How many people? There are so many people who just claim to be atheist. Their number is more. Does the religion have power to do anything really good to the society? Some give a very wonderful answer. No, they have no power to do any good. But they do have the power to do tremendous harm. So we have to be very careful what they are preaching. They may not be doing any good, but they can do tremendous harm. And it has become the truth of this life, we find. Are we really the emissaries of the so-called the religious preachers, are the emissaries of God or the emissaries of Satan? With so much of bloodshed, fight everywhere. It just lies in the simple words of Ramakrishna. It's all bigotry, nothing else. So read these words, paragraph again, and we will end our discussion today. That with sincerity and earnestness, one can realize God through all religions. The Vaishnavas will realize God, and so will the Shaktas, the Vedantists, and the Brahmos. The Musalmans and Christians will realize Him too. All will certainly realize God if they are earnest and sincere. Some people indulge in quarrels, saying one cannot attain anything unless one worship our Krishna, or nothing can be gained without the worship of Kali, our Divine Mother, or one cannot be saved without accepting the Christian religion. This is pure dogmatism. The dogmatist says, my religion alone is true, and the religions of others are false. This is a bad attitude. God can be reached by different paths. So before concluding, I will just say a very strong statement of Swami Vivekananda, very strong. He said a very interesting thing about this dogmatism, that he says the so-called fanatics are even worse than the canine instinct. Fanaticism is worse than the canine instinct. He is polishing his language. Canine instinct means the dogs are called canine, and they have canine instinct. What's the canine instinct? That they will bark at others. Only for their master, they are the slave of their master. So that's the canine instinct. So now Swamiji is saying the so-called fanaticism is worse than the canine instinct. Why? Because a dog recognizes its master in whatever dress he may be, but the fanatics don't recognize their master the moment he changes his dress. And that's what his dogmatism is. So this is the words which we find Sri Ramakrishna speaking, and in different languages Swamiji is speaking. And this is the thing which we have to realize in this world if we have to continue to exist as a civilized human race. Otherwise, it's we who will be the cause of our own destruction, and that's what's happening throughout the world we find. So that's with these words, let us conclude our discussion today. We will continue with this very, very relevant message of Sri Ramakrishna again in the next class. Thank you all. Namaskar.